If you're currently injured and you are currently scared of making that injury worse, that fear is the most potent influencer of your next steps, your next set of actions. And in this video, I hope to completely change that and give you confidence in training this injured area without making it worse. What I'm going to be covering today is understand why you would want to train and benefit from training an injured area, understand exactly how and the rules you must follow when you are doing so, and understand when to make adjustments. Just make myself a little bit smaller. Okay, for those that are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Paul Green. I'm a former British paratrooper and Special Forces support group operator. I've trained thousands of elite soldiers in the past 10 years. I now help men delete injuries and build physical body armor with a system that I created called the Longevity Program. So the first question is, why not just rest? Everybody's saying rest. The doctor says rest. The physiotherapist says rest. They say take painkillers. They say take anti-inflammatories. Why not just listen to these so-called experts? If you're being honest with yourself, resting doesn't actually increase the strength and the resilience of those injured tissues. It just reduces the pain. It just reduces the inflammation. But if we were being honest with ourselves again, is the pain actually the problem? Is the inflammation actually a problem? Or is inflammation just our repair team? Is pain just a response to an underlying problem that might be happening? Because that's why pain happens. So the pain is information. However, the deficit lies in what to do with that information, which is the whole purpose of this video. Now, if we take a quick look at Thomas here, look at this. So when we talk about pain, I tell him to point to where his pain actually is occurring. I get him to do a movement, and he's talking me through his symptoms. As you can see, his shoulder locked, and he's telling me now 7 or an 8 out of 10 pain when he does that movement. So, if pain is information, how the hell do you use that information to your advantage in this situation, right? So in this case, we can clearly see that the pain, look at his face, he's in absolute tatters, is in his side delt. What movement brings on the pain? A body weight side delt raise. And how severe is the pain? He said on that video, it's a 7 or an 8 out of 10 pain. So, these actions are enough for anybody to choose rest. But instead of choosing rest, we have to think of a way in which we can make this less, right? Because the problem isn't the pain. The problem is the current ability level of that injured area, which is very low. And it's what can we do to increase the ability of that area? Hopefully that makes sense. What's glorious about actually logging these data points is we have a baseline, right? We have a foundation and something to build on every session and every week, right? So we've just acknowledged that 7 out of 10 pain doing a bodyweight side delt raise, lateral shoulder raise, as you call it in the gym. So we have to find an easier variation that is no more than a 4 out of 10 pain. Nobody in the right mind will be happy to put themselves through a 7 or an 8 out of 10 pain. However, this is the exact point where most men choose rest, because they let it go back down to a 4 out of 10 pain naturally through natural healing, anti-inflammatories, painkillers, whatever, and then they return back to their sport, mountain biking, rock climbing, jiu-jitsu, skydiving, and the area doesn't actually increase in strength, increase in resilience. So this is the part where most people choose rest, and rightly so. I understand why. However, we can do something else, and this video is all about improving your confidence doing so. Just pause that 1 minute. Okay. This could be your knees, this could be your shoulder, this could be your lower back. You've got to ask yourself, what is easier than a body weight movement? Because most people that can't do a body weight movement without pain don't even try anything easier in order to build strength. So if, like in this Thomas's scenario here, raising his arm up was causing him a 7 out of 10 pain. We have to be able to make that movement easier, and it's a step, it's a sequence. So you have to think, what is an easier way of me doing this? And then you go, what is an even easier way of doing that? What is an even easier way of doing that? And these are called regressions, making the exercise easier. And by doing so, you've got a sequence of about 5 or 6 exercises, and that's now his path to becoming pain-free, developing the strength of his shoulder. So, the quickest and easiest ways, like I said earlier on, this is why most people rest, because they don't know that exercises exist which are easier than the ones that they are currently doing, which is causing them pain. Whether that's shoulder pain, knee pain, elbow pain, they just don't know easier exercises exist. Now, you can do one of these 3 things or all of these 3 things together. Partial range of motion. So in that video there, I got him to raise his shoulder up as high as he could. He didn't have to. If I was to train that injured area, I wouldn't have to go all the way up. I could just do 1/4 of the range of motion. Basically, just raising his arm slightly. I could prioritize a certain muscle contraction. So you've got 3 main muscle contractions. You've got the shortening of the muscle fibers, you've got the lengthening of the muscle fibers, and you've got a hold, an active hold. It's called an isometric. I could prioritize one of those or 2 of those. And another thing you can do is reduce the effort, because you can actually reduce the effort from a body weight variation. If you're doing an isometric hold, you could push into a wall, which is an immovable object, which then is partial range of motion, and you can control the amount of effort in which you are doing through the wall. So you could go, right, I'm going to push with a 5 out of 10 for intensity through the wall. And you're going to get that same lateral side delt benefit. And you could do this with your knees. You could do this with your calves if you tweak your calf. This concept applies to anywhere in the body, right? Hopefully you can appreciate, if you don't have this shoulder injury, you can actually think, this actually makes sense. I'm going to try this with my knee. I'm going to try this with my Achilles tendon. So this is an example of that in real time. You can see him holding a partial range of motion, and he holds the set for 30 to 45 seconds. And that's him prioritizing the isometric contraction. Not as high as when he was in pain there. And you can see he's a little bit more comfortable doing that. And we're abiding by that golden rule. No more than a 4 out of 10 for pain. So isometrics. I genuinely believe that these are the most powerful things for this. Psychological benefits. Because when you realize that you can train, you can load an injured area and get a lot of pain relief in a short period of time, that changes something in your brain. When you realize that the doctors, the physiotherapists, the acupuncture people, all of these people are saying rest and not do things, and by you strategically loading it through isometrics, and you feel pain, something happens. There's a mindset shift that happens, right? And I'm not saying the physiological benefits are crazy. There is a significant drop-off in pain from isometrics. There's studies on this, in its ability to act like a natural anesthesia. However, we're not here to get pain relief, because we understand that the pain was never the problem. The pain was just a response to the problem. So the actual real issue here is to increase the capacity, increase the strength and resilience of those injured tissues. Because unless we can do all the pain relief, we can do all the sports massage we want, but the reality of the situation is those tissues are weak. and fragile and not robust in the slightest. And the question remains, what are you going to do about it? So, isometrics, great for your psychology, because once you do isometrics once in your life and you realize just how powerful they are for that drop off and the increase of function in the early stages, especially if you're 7, 8, 9 out of 10 pain anywhere in your body, you're going to be like, wow. And then you have to progress them. And this leads me to the first problem of that. Most people will do isometrics until the pain drops off, and they will go back to normal life. They'll go back to old habits. Just because the pain's gone doesn't mean the issue is no longer there, right? Isometrics are great for some early wins. However, you have to progress, because the issue is the capacity of the injured area, injured tissues, the lack of resilience. Hopefully that makes sense. So, what do you do when there is no pain? You keep everything going, because if you stop, you lose all momentum. And you've just proven to yourself what actually happens when you load tissues correctly. You increase that joint's function, you reduce the symptoms. You've proven to yourself the concept works. So why would you ever want to stop? Use this moment and use this increased function to add in a few more exercises that you couldn't do previously without pain. Because at the end of the day, you can use moments like this, you can use learning curves like this in order to just zoom out a little bit and actually provide your body and provide your training with some other areas of improvements. So we look at and you can see 32 kilogram dumbbells. Absolutely slamming them home, right? Obviously, you could previously not get anywhere near that. But for the start of his program, I had to take him off pressing movements, so chest pressing movements. He was strictly off them for about 4 weeks. But his shoulder training, he was pretty much pain-free after about the 3-week mark. And because he was pain-free, I could then introduce him to pressing movements after 3 weeks. And that's 3 weeks after a 7 or an 8 out of 10 pain in the shoulder. I'm not a genius, by the way. I'm not. I haven't got a degree or anything like that. I just understand the fundamental things that need to happen in order for him to gain strength of these areas. And that's why I'm talking about it so passionately here. The main reason you're struggling with this is through fear. And my job on this YouTube channel is to build your confidence in doing so. You don't need to rely on anybody else. You've got the information, which is the pain, the symptom. That is the only information you need. You don't need any more information. When to make adjustments. If you follow this, you've just made the best adjustment you could ever make in your life. And that's to your mindset. When your knee feels a little bit sore, you'll know the process to follow. How much does it hurt? Where does it hurt? Is there any way I can do isometric? Is there any way I can reduce range of motion? Did I injure myself on a squat? When did I injure it? Did I injure it doing, was it all the way down when I got injured? Can I now just do a squat halfway down instead? You've got a process, right? You can apply these concepts to any muscle, any tendon, and use it to get stronger. Because, again, the pain is just a warning sign. It's information. But it's only information if you know how to use it. You now know how to use that. Hopefully, if you don't, message me in the comments below. Who knows where it's going to take? Like, having that level of confidence in your ability to train with an injury, who knows where that's going to take you in the future? This is where it took Tom. You can see when he was injured here, 7 out of 10, pain in his shoulder, and now who's absolutely shredded. You know, maybe this is not for you, maybe you want to do something else with your life, but just having that freedom, having that confidence that if something happened, you know what to do. You know a process that works for you to get over your injuries whenever they happen. That is an unbelievably liberating feeling and an unbelievably liberating way to live your life. If you take nothing away from this video, just understand that you need to load the area and not rest it. Have the rule in place of not exceeding 4 out of 10 pain. If you have that rule in place, you'll realise that you are a lot more capable than your brain made you think you were. That's it from me. Hopefully you appreciate the video. If you want help with this on a one-to-one basis, the link in the description is to book onto a call with me for my one-to-one coaching. The second link in the description is for the shoulder protocol that Thomas followed before he even jumped on my program, which give him a lot of relief in symptoms. So for you shoulder guys that fancy a little bit of that, grab yourself a copy. See you tomorrow.